This is really freaking confusing. I mean, pretty much you have the greatest source in the entire NBA, and you have Damian Lillard, and they're saying two completely different things. On top of that, if you subscribe and turn on our notifications, you straight up enter for a chance to win $500. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The Damian Lillard situation is a very confusing one at that, mainly because on one hand, you have one of the most openly loyal players in the entire NBA that will consistently remind you of how loyal he is. But at the same time, you have a very bad situation that is just continuously getting worse, which leads you to wonder what the hell is going on, what the hell is going to happen. So let's start all this out with a report that is definitely not going to happen. You see, a couple of days ago, Stephen A. Smith came out and said just out of nowhere that Damian Lillard would like to go to the Knicks if he's traded. Now, I wanted to open this video with saying that's a complete lie. There's a lot of times where Stephen A. Smith runs out of stuff to talk about and he pulls a rumor that makes no sense whatsoever out of his ass. And I don't really blame him, man, because this type of drama is what keeps him in business. This type of drama keeps First Take going, and I love Stephen A. Smith. I think he's entertaining as hell, but I just hate when he just pulls these rumors out of his ass that make no sense whatsoever. Now, he also did say that there are folks in Damian Lillard's camp that wish he would give the Philadelphia 76ers a much stronger consideration, and well, that part might be a little bit more believable, and for some people they might be wondering why hasn't a Damian Lillard trade to the Philadelphia 76ers happened yet. We'll get to that in a second. You might be wondering also what's causing all of these recent rumors in regards to Damian Lillard potentially being traded. Well, for one, it's the fact that the Portland Trailblazers got off to a slow start this year. As a matter of fact, at the time that I'm making this video, the Trailblazers are currently 11-13. And honestly, you might be thinking that's absolutely horrible, but it's still really early in the NBA season, so theoretically, they're literally just a game behind the Los Angeles Clippers. So it's not too late to right the ship, although it isn't necessarily the progress you'd like to see if you're Damian Lillard. But at the same time, what did you really expect? You're coming off of an offseason where you literally said during a Team USA practice that you want to see an improvement in this franchise and you really want to win. The franchise hasn't really been able to do much for you, man. The only notable additions this past offseason were Ben McLemore, Patrick Patterson, Marquise Chris, Dennis Smith Jr., Tony Snell, Cody Zeller, and Larry Nance Jr. They lost Carmelo Anthony, Harry Giles, Enes Kanter Freedom, Derrick Jones, and Zach Collins. So did this team really improve or did they take a step back? That remains to be seen. They made a very big change in firing their old head coach Terry Stotts and bringing in Chauncey Billups, although it was a very controversial hire. And speaking of controversial hires, the man that hired Chauncey Billups and signed all these players, Neil Olshey, was fired. And Damian Lillard said that him and Neil Olshey actually had a really good relationship. When he was asked about the situation, he said, "I have a lot of thoughts, but you know, in short, I always had a really good relationship with Neil. He drafted me and gave me the opportunity to have the career that I've had. You know, it's been a great run, and it's just an all-around unfortunate situation in the business that we work in." Apparently, Neil Olshey was accused of bullying, intimidating, and going on profanity-laden tirades directed at employees. Over his 10 years with the team, multiple employees filed grievances over Olshey's treatment of team staff. They conducted an investigation into Olshey after Yahoo Sports' Chris Haynes and The Athletic's Shams Charania reported these allegations of a toxic and hostile workplace. Nearly a month later, the team fired Olshey. The team said that they're committed to building an organization that positively impacts our colleagues, and as a result, Joe Cronin will take over as the team's general manager while the organization looks for a permanent replacement. Side note, guys, if you ever go into a job interview and one of the interview questions are you comfortable working in a fast-paced environment? Chances are it's a very toxic workplace. Don't get me wrong, I run 3 channels, we have a lot of content to make, but the number one rule for when you work for me is you have to be working with a smile on your face, and we encourage open communication, which, by the way, we are currently looking for editors and writers, so if you're interested, slide into my Twitter or Instagram DMs at TheFlightMike. So as a result of Damian Lillard's longtime head coach being fired this past offseason, and more recently, the only general manager that he's ever known in the NBA being fired a few days ago, there's rumors running rampant about Damian Lillard potentially being traded. But wait, there's more. Damian Lillard is actually in the midst of one of his worst NBA seasons to date. He's currently averaging 21.5 points per game as opposed to last year's 28.8 points per game, and is shooting a career low 39.7% from the field as opposed to 45.1% last season. So if you look at Damian Lillard's statistics recently, man, it just doesn't look like Damian Lillard. His 3-point percentage went down a whole 10% almost, and he just hasn't been playing his brand of basketball. And of course, when it rains, it pours, because we got an update from one of the most legitimate, if not multiple of the most legitimate sources in the NBA. This is coming to us from Champ Sharanya and Sam Amick, saying that the Portland Trailblazers' Damian Lillard is frustrated with the Portland Trailblazers' play as tension rises between players, coach Chauncey Billups, sources. It opens up by saying, in the wake of Portland firing general manager and president of basketball operations Neil Olshey, questions still swirl about how this move impacts star guard Damian Lillard. Lillard's frustration with Olshey's roster construction took center stage over the summer. However, issues still persist for the six-time All-Star beyond Olshey. Damian Lillard still wants significant changes to the roster. Multiple sources have told The Athletic that he would like to play with the Philadelphia 76ers three-time All-Star Ben Simmons. Now, this is actually a very interesting fit, because if there's one thing that hasn't really gone Damian Lillard's way throughout his entire career, is the fact that he's a remarkable offensive talent, but defensively he has always left something to be desired. And when the Portland Trailblazers would add new players around him, they were more or less the same type of player. I mean, CJ McCollum isn't known for locking down anybody. They signed Carmelo Anthony, who throughout his entire career wasn't known to be a lockdown defender, although he did make an effort once he returned to the NBA for the Portland Trailblazers. But to be fair, it's really hard to find a defense-first player in the NBA today, because the rules really favor a good offensive basketball until more recently, where they made it a little bit more difficult to get fouled and don't reward foul baiting as much. So trading for Ben Simmons would be a very interesting move, because Ben Simmons is one of the few players in the NBA that is an all-world defensive wing talent. I mean, yeah, take away the fact that he's not the greatest jump shooter aside, this man has had a remarkable defensive box plus minus throughout his entire career. And although defensive box plus minus is typically a reflection of how good the team overall is, if you just look at the amount of steals he gets per game, the amount of rebounds he gets per game, the fact that he averages half a block per game, having Ben Simmons on your roster and telling him to just focus on defense could go a long way in fixing any team that is just getting crushed defensively. The article continues to say that the face of the franchise, Damian Lillard, has grown frustrated with the team's play, and tension appears to be on the rise between the players and first-year head coach Chauncey Billups. Those tensions seem to be on display on Saturday night as Billups lit into his team following a home blowout loss to Boston. Billups said, "Competitive fire and pride, that's something you either have or you don't have. That's something you can't turn off and on, and I've never seen a team that needs its bench to inspire our starter. That is crazy to me. It's supposed to be the other way around." The article then dives in a little bit. Sam Amick then takes over for Champs and starts analyzing what's causing Damian Lillard's production to dip, giving a fairly casual take on the matter that everyone would just automatically point out to blame for why Damian Lillard isn't performing so well. As a matter of fact, go to the comments if you already know what it is. I'll give you 5 seconds. Okay. Did you comment? Yeah. So Sam Amick comes in and says, The NBA's new rules regarding defense this season have allowed perimeter defenders to be far more physical and in turn have him at the free throw line far less. And to be fair, Damian Lillard used to get to the line 7 times a game, now he's getting to the line 4.5 times a game. Secondly, Damian Lillard had spent his first 9 seasons in the NBA playing and thriving under former head coach Terry Stotts. It's quite clear that the adjustment to Billups has been challenging, especially on the offensive end, which is something I did partially think was going to happen. I didn't really think firing Terry Stotts was necessary at all, but of course the Blazers needed to do something to say, hey, we're going to make changes, although we can't really bring in stars for you. Here's a brand brand new head coach. Let's see if you can make it work with him. And then finally, last but not least, the abdominal injury that has plagued him for quite some time is certainly the kind of thing that could impact his shooting. All in all, though, he is not playing up to his lofty standards. It's a decent analysis, but it's not really anything that we couldn't have deduced on our own. If you look at Portland, you automatically would think, hey, Dame isn't playing well because 1, it's harder to draw fouls, and 2, he has a brand new head coach, and 3, he has an abdominal injury. But something that Amick also suggested is something that was very obvious that Damian Lillard has told us before, saying that the surefire way to keep Damian Lillard in Portland is to rework its roster in the kind of way that makes the Portland Trailblazers title contenders. He has been patient in Portland for all these years now, but his offseason conversations with the Lakers, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis about possibly playing with them if he were to force a trade told you everything you needed to know about his present-day perspective. More than likely, any trade that's good enough to bring an all-star caliber player to the Portland Trailblazers and compel Lillard to stay would involve his backcourt mate CJ McCollum leaving town. So it's really important to note that Damian Lillard denies this entire thing. So a fan tweets at Dame saying, when will you guys learn to not report this if Damian Lillard hasn't said it directly? Damian Lillard responds saying, these MFs love drama way too much. And to be fair, I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where Damian Lillard will come out and say, hey, I really want to be traded, Portland, please trade me. It doesn't seem like it's in his character to try to force a trade in Portland. I feel like in Portland's situation, it really depends on who takes over as the general manager. If a new general manager comes in and says, okay, dude, you're 31 years old, I don't know how much longer you're going to be productive for, we got to trade you for something before your contract becomes absolutely untradeable, then Damian Lillard could be traded whether he is loyal to the Portland Trailblazers or not. Bear in mind though, Damian Lillard's contract is set to expire after his age 34 season in 2025, so he's not going to leave by free agency. The only way someone could go out and trade for him is if they trade someone else with a supermax contract extension or make up that salary, meaning a player like Russell Westbrook swapped for Damian Lillard straight up, or John Wall swapped for Damian Lillard straight up, which both are fairly unlikely in my opinion. I feel like the Portland Trailblazers' best opportunity here is they need to try to find a way to get Damian Lillard another star. The best star that they could potentially go out and get is Ben Simmons. The problem is Ben Simmons currently isn't playing for the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Philadelphia 76ers don't really need additional guards. As a matter of fact, they're doing fine without him. So it's a very interesting situation where I do think the way out of this is trading CJ McCollum and trying to get another star in return. I just don't know when this would happen, and I don't know who that star would be. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this information, man. It's pretty interesting to see Shams Charania and Damian Lillard going against each other in regards to the tension report, which I don't think there's tension in Portland, but I do think that Damian Lillard would like a trade to be made. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.